Hey, this is Proxy 2 Gate, Episode 2. So this time we're going to be talking a bit about BlizzCon, some end of the year stuff, and with me, as always, is Maizen, because Maizen also angers people by writing things, so I feel like we have a bit of a kinship there. Uh, right, so last time when we did this, we were talking about like BlizzCon. I think the two obvious answers for who was going to win it was either going to be Maru or Serral, and it turned out Serral was the winner. But it wouldn't be a show without endlessly praising myself for getting correct predictions and ignoring all the bad ones. So I will say, I think we did say this last time that Maru's like one of his biggest upset chances is if he got SOS, and that's exactly what happened in BlizzCon,
Yeah,
right?
I think Maru's result at BlizzCon is definitely the most shocking thing that happened at BlizzCon. Um, I honestly, maybe I'm just maybe I just fancy myself as in the know, but I wasn't surprised at all that Serral won. But Maru losing to SOS in the way that he did was, legitimately shocking for me.
Mm, yeah, I've always thought like SOS actually was going to be a terrible matchup for Maru, just because of the way he plays. It's so it goes directly into like SOS's strengths,
Mhm.
and like SOS doesn't have many strengths outside of that. So it's like I think in my opinion, I think he literally gave SOS the best possible chance to win that series, and then SOS did. Like that's kind
I
of how I
mean,
thought about it. But then
I
like,
mean that series to me is a very good example. Well, it makes you ask some questions, and the first question is how the hell did Maru not realize that SOS was going to do what he was going to do? Because SOS just did one base blink builds, which perfectly counter any proxy.
mm-hmm,
If Maru ever just goes Rax expand, SOS is super far behind. But SOS just did this one base blink build. The thing is, obviously, SOS had a read on what Maru was going to do, but these two play together so much. It's shocking that Maru never had an idea that SOS was going to do something like this. Um, and then as the series went on, he didn't adapt to it at all. He just kept doing proxy builds into a three gate opening on one base, and you just can't do that.
right. So this is actually something I did talk about. I forget who it was with, but basically I said Maru was completely overrated as like a series planner throughout 2018 because I always thought he was just straight up relying on the fact that he was a better player and that this style of play, proxies, or before that, his own self created like a Master Raven play, like those were all things he was specialized in, but he didn't actually know how to plan a series. And it all came back to this moment for me. Where I was like, okay, so because outside of the fact that they're teammates, he does know for the fact he does have like 3 4 years of watching SOS play other people,
Mhm.
right? And SOS, even if like the technical aspects of the build are different, the specific strategy of what SOS is doing is exactly the same as he's always done. So I'll just go ahead and say I think Maru straight up like didn't respect what SOS could do, and then he straight up like went full like Marine King's like doesn't matter, I'll win this anyway, and then he lost. And then went doesn't matter, I'll win this anyway, and he lost. And then he got tilted off the face of the earth, and then he died. Right.
Well, so the most interesting game is the Lost and Found game.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the one where Maru proxies and SOS can rushes.
Yep.
And Maru basically just gives this game away. Uh, so all he needs to do is make one. So this is a funny game, actually. I'm gonna look at it from my point of view. So I see this happening, and I say, okay, so all Maru has to do is make one cyclone, and then just get everything out of his main base, right?
Yeah.
Because the one cyclone will kill everything SOS has back at home. He'll just lose to the one cyclone. Maru relocates his base and wins. Uh, Maru lifts off to the base. He's in the bottom left corner. So
Mm-hmm.
he lifts off to the normally the fourth base location, which is directly below the main base, which by the way can be cannon rushed from the high ground. So he chose the absolute worst base to float to.
Mm-hmm.
But there was this SOS moment where I think you would like this because you like Haas. So
Yeah.
Maru doesn't lift up all his stuff right away, right? And he's got 12 workers, 15 workers, whatever it is, in his main base when he lifts up his command center and he starts going to the new base. Um, Haas would have just fully walled the ramp, and that would have been game over.
Yep. That what?
But
That,
Yeah, but that SOS didn't do it. So that's how you know he's not a complete lunatic. Haas totally would have identified that I can just track all of Maru's workers in here.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
Haas would have definitely done that. Definitely would
yeah,
have
I
done
mean
that.
for sure. That's straight up his playbook. Just the
Mm-hmm.
weirdest possible thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the game, yeah, he just that was like just I think after he lost that game, it was clear that he didn't have any like contingency plans. He was just going to do the same thing he'd done, and
And
at
then he
that
died,
point, there
right?
was no way. Yeah, at that point, he just was losing with it.
Mm-hmm. So, this is a strange analogy. I don't really know if you ever saw this. It was back during, I think, 2014. I'm not sure if you watched StarCraft 2 back then.
I did, yeah.
Okay, so there was a tournament in, I think it was Toronto at that time. It was between Zest and Tasia.
Mhm.
And I forget the exact map, but a very similar situation happens in that, even though it's completely different builds, completely different players. But basically, Zest has essentially won the game. And what Tasia does is he realizes, oh, okay, if this game keeps going normally as it should go, Zest will like win 99% of the time. So what he does is he initiates a base trade the moment like Zest gets too far across the map. So they do the base trade, but then Zest does exactly what you're saying here, where like he expands to the wrong base. He expands to like a base that has like a high ground above it, where like Tasia's Marines and Medevac can like harass it from multiple
Mhm.
different angles or whatever, right? And this is actually basically the same scenario that happens to Maru. And this, what I'm basically getting at is there's a very specific style of, I guess there are two schools of thought about what StarCraft 2 as a game is supposed to be. The first one is like what I call the innovation train of thought, which is you basically master and refine a very specific playbook, but within this playbook, you've like iterated as many scenarios as you possibly can, right? And so that's why innovation is like one of the all-time greats because he doesn't necessarily have a style. He's just really fucking good at the standard play and putting it above everybody else.
Mhm.
And then the other school of thought would be Tasia or Life. There's specific types of players who, in the moment, can instantly creatively adapt to the situation and find the exact right move and the exact right time that was never practiced before, will likely never be practiced again. And in those scenarios, they win out. And SOS is more of that school of thought than he is of the previous school of thought, even though he is like a combination of both of those.
Well, I think SOS is a lot different of a player now than he used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's maybe it's not Legacy of Void, but I feel like since Legacy of Void, he's been a much more. He just does a lot of weird all-ins. Does a
Yeah.
lot of strange all-ins. Like the series against Maru is something that's more like that's the SOS we think of. But really, all he did against Maru was just like figure out a hard counter for Maru's main build and then just do it. Like to
Mm-hmm.
me, that's not. Um,
It's
that's
not
just
it's not
that's
really
just
like Life or Tasia, but basically he like disrupted it. And
yeah.
then
I mean,
how I would look at it is like Mario's like, oh, I have no idea what to do. Whereas you put like Life or Tasia in his spot, they could probably figure out an answer
I mean, if you put, I frankly think that you could put a lot of players in
in that
Maru's
spot, right?
position because he literally just all he has to do is the barracks expand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does he really not think that if he plays a regular macro game versus SOS that he'll lose if he plays a regular game? I mean, if he does, then he's giving SOS a lot more credit than I do.
Okay,
And I figure Maru has to win that game.
so
Based on,
this is I know this part's outside of your time zone, but basically Mario used to be part of a Prime, the
Mhm.
really old StarCraft 2 team. And
Yep.
what Prime was famous for was every single one of their players except for Polt was extremely stubborn. And what I mean by that is like they always had a very specific way of playing, and they stuck to it no matter if they literally died or not.
Yeah.
And like the most famous example is being Marine King in 2012, because
Mhm.
he literally only had two builds, which was one was the 1111 proxy racks, and the other one was racks was like not racks command center first.
Yeah, he did command center first against everybody, no matter what
No matter
they
what
did.
the situation was, no matter what the meta was, no matter the fact that like a single build could counter both of those.
Didn't someone 10 pool him once and he held with the CC first or something?
Yeah, and that convinced him to keep doing it forever.
Yeah.
And that was completely wrong. Like just because you figured it out once, it doesn't mean it'll ever work again. But he just kept doing it, and then that's why he literally dies. And I think I don't necessarily know if that's like why Maru did it, but like that's the environment Maru grew up in. Those are the players he played with. I think it's just part of who he is as a player, and you don't really you didn't see it throughout this entire year because he was so much better than everybody else that it took time for somebody to actually come up with like, wait, what if you just hard counter him?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, he did the same stuff. Like once he started proxying, everyone, it worked against everybody until it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. And I mean, if Maru played another TVP against a different player, I think he'd probably proxy again.
Yep.
I don't think anyone else has the balls to, because that's what, like I said, if Maru goes Rax expand and builds a bunker and a cyclone, then SOS's 3-gate opening just puts it massively behind.
Yep.
So I don't think any other Protoss is going to risk that, and they'd rather just try to defend the proxy, I think. So it'll be interesting to see next time Maru faces. Well, we won't really know because the Cyclone's being changed as a unit in the balance patch.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have liked to have seen if Maru played like stats like a week after BlizzCon, how that series would have gone.
Yeah. I will point out another funny thing is SOS did face Marine King in like a Kespa Cup finals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it was like a kind of a similar situation where like basically nobody is punishing Marine King for his greed because like a kind of like proxy all-in meta was around, so everybody was afraid of that. But then SOS is like, no, he isn't going to do that, and they just killed Marine King.
Yeah, I mean, he beat like 3 of the best Protosses in the world before that.
Yeah, and then that's like literally like Marine King's last hurrah. He died as he lived, never adapting.
So yeah, so we were talking about Maru and Serral.
Yeah.
And so Maru's tournament ends there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone considered SOS a serious challenger to win the tournament either. So it's kind of like that's a big bummer.
Mm-hmm. He basically just got eliminated by like the one guy who could eliminate him and not go on further.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, SOS loses, easy peasy. Serral in the bottom bracket though. I wrote about his 2 first matches in pretty decent detail because I thought these 2 ZBZs were just emblematic of showing how good Serral is. Because, I think Dark and Rogue played good series. Played really, really well. Game 4 against Rogue's one of the best games of the year, I think. And he just outclasses them, like, by a wide margin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just felt like Serral was, like, maybe in terms of, like, pure execution, I think Rogue and Dark were pretty close to him. But in terms of strategy, I just felt like Serral knew how to play ZVZ better than they did.
Yeah, I mean, it was 2 players who you could tell they were like pretty close, right? Like, the scores don't indicate that they're pretty close, but you could tell they're both really good players.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like one of those things where like everything that was like kind of coin flippy went Serral's way in like all the games. Yeah. And at a certain point, that's not luck. That's just one player's handling these engagements better, or building a better composition, or sneaking in some extra drones. Whatever it is, Serral was always getting an edge against a player who is really, really good.
Yeah, basically, as far as I can tell, Serral understood his game plan. In contrast to like Rogue and Dark, where I think Rogue and Dark came into the series with like the wrong strategies. Like I forget who it was. It might have been Nurchio, it might have been somebody else, but basically they're like, yeah, the Koreans don't really understand ZVZ at this point.
Oh no, that's what Serral said.
Oh, that's what Serral said. Yeah, I think it was spot on.
It's 100% accurate. Yeah, he understands the matchup better than them.
Yeah, and then like unfortunately for them, they don't actually play against Serral or European Zergs in general that often because it's been split basically for a long period of time. So unless they go to Europe and learn from that, they're not. I think it was always going to be like an information mismatch.
Well, we're going to get as a brief aside, we're going to get a really interesting match at Home Story Cup because the last person to beat Serral and ZVZ was Sue at Nation Wars in like March, and they're in the same Home Story Cup group.
Yeah, and Sue is actually a very different player from both of these guys.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is like mentally speaking, Sue is a guy who would learn from European or NA Zergs or whatever. Like he doesn't have that barrier in his head.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to rewatch the games from the Nation Wars, but if I recall, maybe that was before Serral, because Serral took a big leap as the year went on. Like
Yeah, like that was
his,
before Serral hit his like prime, right? But
yeah, I'd say I think before when he won his third, if I looked at the calendar, when he won WCS Montreal, not Montreal, Valencia and GSL versus the World, I think those were his two best. I felt like Montreal, he looked a little fatigued.
mm-hmm.
But when he won Valencia and GSL versus the World, I think that was his like first peak, and then Blizzcon
Was his
was
highest peak.
was the highest. Yeah, because he was just excellent.
Yeah, I think yeah. So basically, I'm in agreement with you. Basically, like he actually got stronger throughout the year, even though like it doesn't look like it. It's like first, a bunch of firsts. But I think he did get stronger throughout the year as time went on.
Yeah, I
Essentially,
mean, like Leipzig and all, Leipzig, I think he didn't do that. Like he won, obviously, so it's kind of
yeah.
weird to say. But I don't think his map score probably wasn't as good as it was in later tournaments. In
Mm-hmm.
Montreal, he played like a full series against Lambeau, a full series against Scarlet, 7 games against Rayner.
Like I feel like Montreal, he was just straight up fatigued.
Yeah, I mean he played Boston, Valencia, GSL versus the World in Montreal in a 4 month period.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I feel like he was basically still he was like the fact that he was able to win that was still pretty good in my opinion because
yeah,
that was like close to the end of the run without any break, and then he had a break for BlizzCon.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think that'll be forever like a topic of just speculation. Is just why is it that Serral doesn't like going to Korea? And there's obviously a million reasons. All of them are perfectly reasonable. But I personally think that like he maybe doesn't take like traveling that well, which
Uh,
wouldn't be
mm-hmm.
crazy. A lot of a
Like
lot of people suffer jet lag and whatnot. But
mm-hmm.
um, yeah, it seems like leaving home and going to Korea is not really of interest to him. So I don't know how having all those events one after another impacted him.
Yeah, like Cyril doesn't strike me as a guy who particularly cares about what's the word I'm looking for. I guess I guess it would be particularly cares about being number one.
Hmm.
What I mean by that is like he doesn't strike me as somebody who's like I live or die off of this shit like the same way like Naniwa did or Huck back in the day or they're like these types of people like who are super crazy about it who bet it all on like trying to be number one, right?
Yeah.
Cyril's never really struck me as that type of player. Like he's like I do feel like he's legitimately like just the guy who's like okay I'll just play in my comfort, I'll play in my region, I'll just get better over time, and then that's what happened.
Yeah, there's a quote of his from the that he said a couple times, or he's phrased similarly, where he said, why would I be nervous playing StarCraft? That's my work. That's what I do."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he really plays like someone who's totally at ease with his situation, with his spot as a pro gamer. I don't think he's concerned with any outside stuff. It's just whatever he's doing. Um, he gets his own validation from himself. He's not looking at anywhere else to say anyone else to say he's the greatest, anything like that.
Yeah.
All motivated by himself and all just comfortable with what he's doing. It seems like.
Yeah, like I don't even get the feeling he actually cares at all about like the weird thing about like the foreigner versus Korea or him versus Maru. Like I feel like he's just completely self-absorbed in like his work,
Yeah, I agree.
right? And that's also why I think he's like so much better than a bunch of people because like he doesn't get bogged down by all that other stuff. But can't really say for sure. But that's just my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, he also has the benefit of just being an extremely fast player.
Yeah,
Like
talent's
he
pretty
can do
good too.
more than everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talent is pretty good at the end of the day,
Yeah.
or whatever you want to call it. But I think that about covers it for BlizzCon. I will say I think we both called it for Group A between TY and Neeb. Whereas like I think I said like whoever loses the first round will win the second one. It's kind of what happened, kind of. Except I think Neeb choked in the second one.
Yeah, I forget how that series went exactly. But I will say, I think Serral was a big favorite. Not surprised that he won. For me, I think Classic was a big disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I think I'll go ahead and say it. I think stats is like one of the best overachievers in StarCraft 2 history. This guy always goes farther than you expect him to.
well, I mean, I don't know if it's him overachieving. I think we just don't appreciate Stats for how good he is. And
Mm-hmm.
then and he's the kind of thing where like, oh, you always say, oh, Stats, he's great, he's blah blah, and then it comes to like tournament time, and you're like, well, this, these guys are all better than Stats.
And it's not really the case, is it? All
No,
right.
I mean, so that's yeah, second at BlizzCon. He's so many high places over Legacy of the Void. He keeps this up, he's gonna be really move up among the ranks of the Protosses
Mm-hmm.
as far as all time, results go.
Yeah. So I think about covers of BlizzCon like in general. Like I didn't think that many games were that great because I feel like Maru was straight up disappointed, and he has like the most interesting games in
Mm-hmm.
general. Uh, Rogue versus Ty was fun just because I think Rogue played Muta, and I feel like that's like the best style. That's not the best style, but it's the most entertaining style to watch.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
I personally think all the Serral games from the round of 8, round of 4, and the finals were all good.
I think they were good, but they're like good in a different way. They're good in like you're watching a master
Yeah,
class
I know what
work,
you mean.
whereas it's not necessarily like entertainment and masterclass kind of thing.
Yeah. Game 4 was the only time that anybody, I feel like, went really toe to toe with Serral in the whole tournament.
Mm-hmm.
The game they played on Lost and Found where like Rogue was, I'd say, getting the better end of trades. He was like up a base, getting the better end of trades, but Serral just wore him down and depleted Rogue's gas count.
Yep.
And then the game ended that way. That you talked about players who can identify a win condition. And
Yeah.
Serral just knew, like, he's like, okay, Rogue's up a base, he's attacking me constantly, but all I have to do is take good trades and Rogue will run out of gas.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. So that's the only game maybe in the whole tournament that I would say you for sure should watch.
Yeah.
Everything else is,
Yeah, I agree with you. Besides the Rogue TY like Mutalist game, but that's more like entertainment. I think in terms of
yeah.
pure like skill play, the Rogue Serral game trumps that by a lot. I think. Okay, so let's talk about Korea for a second. Just think about it throughout the entire year. How would you rate Korea's like entire performance? Like, because I feel like it's actually on a downtrend again. Like, I feel like last year with Sue and Innovation was pretty good. Was that the year? I think it was.
Yep, 2017 was a very good year for Koreans, and
Like what I mean by
it
good
showed.
year though, I just mean like in terms of like the skill they showed
Yeah, I agree. No, I think 2016
was
is
pretty
like
bad.
everybody's down because and then the teams disband, and 2017 is it's like kind of like a shot in the arm, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of the players are on their own now. A lot of them try harder. They get refocused. They had a bad year in 2016. They want to do better. And I think overall 2017 was very strong in Korea. And I think this was shown at IEM, at BlizzCon, where the Koreans just dominated the foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but this year, I think there's so many things at play, and I think the one that everybody wants to blame it on is just the most incorrect. I think this has nothing to do with region lock.
Yeah.
I think you got a shrinking scene. You got a game that's not particularly popular. You got a bunch of players
Who are getting
nearing
older.
military service. They're
Yeah.
getting older. It's military soon. So I think, I would say that it's going to be just downhill from here on out for the Korean scene.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Even if they repeal region lock, like if we look at BlizzCon's a great example. Like you see Maru TY, SOS, Stats Dark, Rogue, like names like that. Like they will just feast on players like Nerd Show, Showtime, Haas, Hero Marine, Lambo, Neve. All these like good foreigners just gonna get replaced. But all the other Koreans aren't gonna, Bunny, Creator,
Ryung, those guys.
App, Young, all these guys, they're not going to do any better if region locks are repealed. Those guys
Mm-hmm.
aren't any better than the best foreigners, and they're probably worse than guys like Showtime or Neve.
But definitely better than Haas. Everybody's better than
Yeah, they're
Haas.
better than
But
Haas. Yeah, so I think next year, if there's no region lock, it won't really improve things as much as people think it will. I think people are going to start retiring. It's a steady decline, but it's not a bad thing if you know what I mean. I think it's
yeah.
like, I think just Korean StarCraft has been amazing for a very long time, and we should appreciate it for what it
What?
is
Mm-hmm.
and what it's been. And I don't think there's a reason to be like,
Yeah, I don't know
trying
why
to.
everybody's like super down about it. It's like
Yeah,
it is what
I
it
mean,
is, right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think there's this issue, and maybe it comes from the sense of like the dead game thing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
always trying to like make a real effort to show how alive StarCraft 2 is. And people are like unwilling to come to terms with just the basic reality of the Korean scene, which was eventually military service is going to happen and all your favorite players are going to retire,
Yeah.
which isn't a bad thing. It's just the natural course, you know?
Yeah. I will say this. Sue's got to get win one before the retirement's up. Before the retirement's up, he's got to win one
Yeah.
GSL.
Well, thanks to Asterion, they're probably going to keep him playing for another year.
Yeah.
When you get a nice contract from your team, that money motivates you to play a little more. So
Like that would actually be the greatest injustice in StarCraft 2 history is if Sue never won a GSL.
yeah, it'd be awful.
It would also be fitting, but it would be truly awful.
It would be worse if WCS deal like canceled GSL. Like if it would, I think if Sue retired without winning one, it would be like, oh, that's too bad. But if
Mhm.
GSL went out before Sue did, that would be a true crime. Like you never gave Sue his full amount of chances to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would be the most terrible. Basically, I'm in agreement with you. It's just like the Korean scene, this Korean scene problem's actually been. We saw the roots of it back in like 2014, 2015, and then it's just like accelerated since then. But even if like region lock hadn't happened, like, yeah, like there are some weird things about the way region lock happened because we don't really know about the politics behind it. Like as far as I know, it could have just been like one of those deals where like IEM DreamHack like we're not holding any more of these like foreigner international tournaments just because they don't make any kind of sense to us
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like the financial like gain from it.
Yep.
And so like Blizzard's like, okay, well what if we do region lock so you don't have to pay for like Koreans flying in? What if you do all this or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
Maybe and so like maybe they wouldn't have existed anyway. Like I that's like the feeling I got from it when like Apollo got super angry at me like a long time ago or somebody else about the entire thing. But anyway, like there are like too many things that still remain unresolved for the Korean scene, and I think are unsolvable. So just
Yeah.
accept it what it is and like enjoy it. Like it still doesn't make like the game like assuming like it's a great 10 out of 10 game. It's still not going to change that fact that it's a
Yeah.
fucking great game, right?
No, I think measuring the quality of a game by like how many people play it and how many people watch it is just the silliest thing to do. And if
Mhm.
only 100 people tuned into GSL, but people were playing like the best games of their career, I call it a victory.
Yeah.
That's what matters. It's just that players can play well, and I do hope that these guys, because I think a lot of what happened this year is there's like worrying because you worry when you're retiring with the military service, you have like the 18 months,
Mm-hmm.
and then what next? And I think people legitimately get worried about what, like, because that's the rest of their lives, right? I mean,
Yeah.
these guys are not even 30.
And there's no way they made enough money to like in their StarCraft 2 career that they can just not worry about it. Like it's
Of
not
course not.
possible.
Of course not. Even if they wanted to like open a business, they need to take out pretty big loans. So it's the kind of thing where, yeah, it's distracting. And I think there's a number of players this year, and also you have to talk about Zest, who said in an interview that he maybe tries at like 50%.
Yeah.
It's an effort thing. These guys have been doing this forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot different for like Serral, he's been playing professionally since 2012, I think.
Yeah.
But he was in school for almost all of it. I mean, he went pro last year full time.
Yeah. Like for him, this is like his true, like this is like
It's
true
his
like
rookie season,
first all in
right?
basically. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
like I forget who he lost to. It was either Supernova or Tasia. But even back then, he was pretty good. But yeah, like the whole thing about like the fear factor is like I think Puma said it best. It like feels like an executioner's like a death penalty is coming for you with the military service.
Yeah.
And I know there's been like sports studies and like other studies where basically like they figure out like if you don't have a plan for the future, your performance goes down in general. And
Mhm.
the way the Koreans think about pro gaming is so different from everybody else. And like, did you see the documentary about MMA? And
I did not watch that actually.
okay, well, you don't really need to. All you need to do is remember this line, where basically it's Yellow and MC talking to each other, and Yellow is like one of the legends from StarCraft, Brood War, like
Yep.
basically
The original Kong.
the original Kong, like basically Sue's father in a sense.
Yeah.
And then MC was like one of the original greats of StarCraft 2, one of the all-time great Protoss players. Basically defined what force field and attacking meant in a sense. And so he and MC are talking to each other. And like MC is like, okay, so I'm thinking about the future. I'm thinking about what my career is, of what I'm going to do forward. And then Yellow's like, what are you talking about? You're a pro player. It's like, yeah, I'm a pro player. It's like, well, when you're a pro player, like this is from Yellow's own experience. Like when you're a pro player, at this moment, you have to put everything you are into the game. You can't even think about the future because if you're thinking about the future, the other people who are thinking about the game will surpass you. And those are the regrets I have was because I was thinking like you were and I failed because of that. Right? That's kind of how the Koreans think.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, they're at this point in their career. Yeah, I mean, when they were on a team with salary and living in a team house, it was completely different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But so I think 2019 will be. I think we'll see a lot of retirements at the end of the year, and I think over the course of the year, there's some particular players that if they don't start off well, I think they might kind of just fade out as the year goes on. So we'll keep an eye out on that.
Except for Creator, that guy will literally outlive all of us.
Yeah, creators. He's. I mean, talk about having a contract and just play.
I still don't know how the fuck he did it.
You know, I think it's another thing. A topic for another day is how people don't understand what generic Green Wings is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That will be a topic for another day, I guess. All right.
Because interesting team for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. So let's see here. I guess we'll talk a bit about your article, the bit about Serral's revolution.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you truly think? And I don't mean this to be like confrontational or anything. I'm just wondering, from your point of view, do you think like a player can like, in a sense, inspire and enforce like a level of play across the entire field?
So I would say that I think Serral's done an interesting thing. He's shown that the Koreans are beatable. Like him winning GSL versus the World and Neeb winning Kespa Cup is very different from winning BlizzCon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I was speaking towards is like I think region lock like kind of worked. So like Serral's the best player in the world, but the other foreigners are still not as good as the top Koreans.
Yeah.
But like the fact that Serral's now shown, that the fear thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
I don't think foreigners will ever fear Korea. Like the good foreigners, I don't think they'll ever fear Koreans again. Because they say, look, I played against Serral tons of time. I've beaten Serral on ladder. I've beaten Serral in a qualifier, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
So why would I be afraid of, TY, who Serral's better than, or Rogue, who Serral's beaten? Why would I be afraid of them anymore? And I think Serral will force players to elevate their skill. They got to practice harder. They got to be smarter. They got to do a lot more if they want to catch up to him.
Yeah, that was like Neve's criticism of everybody in 2016.
Yeah, just the laziness.
Yeah, like he criticized both Koreans and foreigners for being too lazy, basically.
Yeah, I think Serral's performance is going to really galvanize the foreign scene. You could see it even with, Laser in his article recently where he's basically like, yeah, I want to make it a rivalry again. And I can tell you that when I've talked to other foreigners recently, Serral's name keeps popping up. He's in their head. They're thinking about him. They're thinking on how to beat him. So I think he's going to cause the entire foreign scene to, improve.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I was thinking of it in terms of like gameplay. Because like when you think about like innovation and his career, and like when he like the different times he ascended, there's basically like 2-3 dozen dead Korean Terrans who tried to follow him and died because they all copied his style.
Yeah.
But you're more talking about like the psychological aspect of it's like there's always been like this weird like false glass ceiling in their heads where they actually didn't think they could win. I guess would be the difference there.
Yep.
All right. All right.
The other thing I will say real quick is Serral doesn't really have a style.
No, of course not. Like
he could play. This is what Elijah said. Serral could play any way he wanted, and he would make it look good because he's so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't have a style. He just plays well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But like the same thing could be applied to innovation. Like when I'm talking about the styles, like basically just taking the meta and then improving it a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue they're the same thing, but I don't think it's like a style that anyone will copy or anything. It's just no one's gonna try to be Serral, but everyone wants to beat Serral now.
Okay, all right,
yeah.
All right. I guess one more topic is because I actually thought it was like a pretty close toss up, but like the reaction I got was like everybody thinks Serral is overwhelmingly the best player of the year. Whereas I thought it was like pretty close between him or Maru, and then I went with Maru in the end. So, what are your thoughts about that?
I think it's tough. I think winning 3 GSLs is definitely much more impressive than winning 4 WTS events.
Mm-hmm.
But winning 1 BlizzCon as a foreigner is much more historically significant than winning, a GSL. So it's a really tough argument. I think it's a toss. I don't think it's all like definitely one player. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think anybody like all the people who were saying like, oh, Serral should be esports player of the year. He wasn't nominated, obviously, but I think Maru is just as strong of a case as Serral.
Yeah.
Winning 3 GSLs is, I mean, it's funny because like I wrote an article, where after he won 2, where it was like only one guy's ever done this before.
Yeah.
And then like we wrote the same article when he won going into the finals. We were like, only Sue has made 3 straight finals before. So like every progressive step of the way, he was getting into like more and more rarefied air. Until he wins it, and he's the only one ever. And so Serral is like really historically significant, but I think the 3 GSLs are definitely much more impressive than winning GSL versus the 4 WCS events for sure.
Yeah. Okay, because that's where I put it. Because like, here's the thing. Like, I know Blizzard tried to make it a thing back in 2013, but SOS wasn't the best player of the year that year. He wasn't even close. And
no, I mean innovation or somebody. It was
like innovation or somebody else, right? Like, so I don't think like winning BlizzCon like negates everything else he did. But at least in Serral's case, he did a shit ton of other stuff too, right? So
yeah,
I actually think that's an actual close argument. But the fact is like, I have to add the weird caveat, like he's a foreigner, but no, he's not really a foreigner in my eyes. He's just Serral, right? Like that's just who he is. So like I don't add that in. So that's why I was just wondering if like I was.
Well, you could definitely argue that this is the first time since I guess MVP won BlizzCon or whatever the equivalent was way back when.
Mm-hmm.
But you could say this is the first time since then that maybe, quite possibly, almost certainly, the best player of the year has won BlizzCon.
Yeah, probably.
He gets helped out by 2 of the winners being SOS. So
yeah, like SOS is pretty good at ruining people's lives.
Yeah, Beyond was worse than Dark that year. I don't think Rogue Innovation was better than Rogue.
Yeah, Innovation was definitely better than Rogue.
Life was not better than Zester Sue.
No, he was going to be, but not yet.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you like put the if you put the beginning of 2015 in 2014, then maybe.
Yeah, but like, obviously that's not how you count it. So no,
exactly.
He definitely wasn't it.
So yeah, I really think that that like this was the first time the best player, or definitely one of the best 2 players, has actually won BlizzCon. Yeah. So I think Blizzard finally got like what they wanted, right? They got the best player to win the biggest tournament, and he's a foreigner. Someone at Blizzard is very, very happy with how this year went.
Yeah. I think about it covers it. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, not particularly, but Home Story Cup's coming up.
All right. Yeah.
That's always going to be fun. Serral will be there.
Serral will be there. So will Sue. And Stefano probably drinking.
I'm looking forward to the thing that you should all most look for at Home Story Cup is Serral casting.
Serral casting. Have you ever heard him talk before?
he taught. Like, I'll tell you, when Smix asked him a question at BlizzCon, he went on like quite the tangent, just on and on and on. And it's funny because I was talking to someone recently who said that when pros explain gameplay as a caster, they like go into in depth really a lot.
Yeah.
And you could like see when Serral was asked like a simple question, the gears turning in his head as he's like processing it and extrapolating it and playing it out the scenario to see how it ends. So I'm curious what he'll be like as a caster. That's all. That's what I want to see most of the weekend.
Yeah. I'm just scared to watch if Tasia can actually be good again with zero practice or whatever he's doing, because that would be some bullshit if he was.
Yeah, we'll see. That'll be fun. If Tasia wins, then the people who did the power rank are bailed out because they put him at 1. So
Okay.
they need some help.
All right. That about ends it. See you guys later.